The Xanth were old. Very old. They had been traveling between stars for 50,000 years. In all that time, they had never lost a war. Not once. Not close. They were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest. They were the smartest. At least, that is what they believed. Their secret was simple. They studied. They wrote everything down. Every battle. Every mistake. Every victory. They turned war into a science. Their generals did not guess. They calculated. Their soldiers did not feel. They followed orders. Their ships did not improvise. They executed perfect formations. The Xanth Academy of War was the oldest in that part of the galaxy. It was a beautiful building made of white stone and blue glass. Inside, thousands of students studied the art of combat. They read books written 50,000 years ago. They ran simulations that predicted every possible outcome. They learned that war was a puzzle. And every puzzle had one correct solution. Find that solution, and you win. Simple. General Vex was the best of them. He had graduated at the top of his class. He had written 3 books on military theory. His simulations had never failed. He had never lost a battle. He was perfect. Everyone said so. Vex stood in his command room. The walls were covered in screens. The screens showed star maps and ship positions and supply lines. Everything was organized. Everything was clean. Everything was under control. The humans, said his assistant, a young officer named Lin. They are new. They have only been in space for a few hundred years. They have no formal military training. They do not have an academy. They do not have books. They do not have theories. Vex smiled. It was a thin smile. A confident smile. Then they will be easy. Sir, I have been reading about them. They fight strangely. They do not follow patterns. They do not use formations. They are animals, Vex said. Animals fight with instinct. We fight with science. Science always beats instinct. Lin wanted to argue. She had read the human reports. Something about them bothered her. The humans had fought many wars among themselves. They had done terrible things to each other. But they had also done brilliant things. They had turned defeat into victory. They had turned weakness into strength. They had done things that made no sense on paper but worked anyway. But Vex was the general. Lin was just an assistant. She kept her mouth shut. The border dispute came 2 weeks later. A small human colony sat near Xanth space. The Xanth wanted the resources on the colony's moon. The humans said no. The Xanth sent a fleet. 20 ships. Perfect ships. Each commander had been trained at the academy. Each knew every theory. Each had never lost a simulation. The humans sent 5 ships. Small ships. Old ships. Ships held together with hope and bad welding. The Xanth laughed when they saw them. This will be quick, Vex said. He ran a simulation. It predicted a human surrender in 6 hours. He showed the result to his crew. They nodded. They trusted the numbers. The numbers had never been wrong. The human ships did not surrender. They did not run. They did not attack in formation. They just sat there, floating, waiting, doing nothing. Vex frowned. That is not in the simulation. What are they doing? Lin studied the screens. I do not know, sir. They are not moving. They are not communicating. They are just present. Fire a warning shot. The Xanth fired. The shot passed near the human ships. It was a clear message. Surrender or die. The human ships still did nothing. Vex felt something strange. A small crack in his confidence. The humans were not following the rules. They were not behaving the way the simulation predicted. They were not behaving the way any species behaved. They were just sitting there like nothing was happening. Move the fleet closer, Vex said. Prepare to fire on my command. The Xanth ships moved forward. 20 perfect warships closing in on 5 small, ugly, silent human ships. It should have been easy. It should have been over. Then the humans moved. Not in formation. Not in patterns. They moved like a flock of startled birds. One ship went left. One went right. One went straight at the Xanth flagship. One turned around and flew away. One just kept sitting there, doing nothing. Vex blinked. What is this? This is not a formation. This is chaos. Lin pointed at the screen. Sir, the ship coming straight at us. It is not stopping. Shoot it. The Xanth fired. The human ship dodged. Not with math. With instinct. It moved left when the Xanth aimed right. It moved up when they aimed down. It was not following any known pattern because it had no pattern. It was just a human doing whatever felt right. The ship kept coming. Closer. Closer. Vex saw the human pilot's face on his screen. The pilot was not afraid. The pilot was smiling. Smiling like this was the most fun he had ever had. Fire everything, Vex said. His voice was not calm anymore. They fired. The human ship took a hit. Its engine caught fire. But it did not stop. It kept coming. Faster now. Like a wounded animal running toward its killer. What is wrong with them? Vex shouted. Lynn watched the screen. Her face was pale. Sir, I do not think they care if they die. The human ship rammed the Xanth flagship. Metal hit metal. Alarms screamed. Vex fell out of his chair. The lights flickered. The screens went dark. When they came back on, the human ship was gone. Broken. Dead. But so was the Xanth flagship's main weapon. Its shields were down. Its communication was dead. The other human ships attacked. They came from every direction. No pattern. No plan. Just violence. The Xanth tried to fight back, but their training did not prepare them for this. Their theories did not cover enemies who rammed you. Their simulations did not predict enemies who smiled while dying. Within an hour, the Xanth fleet retreated. They had lost 5 ships. The humans had lost 1. The numbers made no sense. The theories made no sense. Nothing made sense. Vex sat in the dark. His perfect record was broken. His perfect theories were useless. His perfect academy had taught him everything except how to fight humans. Lynn stood beside him. Sir, I tried to warn you. The humans do not follow rules. They never have. They never will. We studied war as a science. They live war as a nightmare. There is a difference. Vex said nothing. He just stared at the screen. The human ships were gone. But they would be back. And when they came, he would have to learn a new kind of war. A war without rules. A war without theories. A war without books. A human war. The Xanth fleet regrouped near the edge of the human colony's space. 20 ships had become 15. 5 were gone. Destroyed by a species that had no academy, no theories, no books. General Vex sat in his command chair. His uniform was torn. His face was cut. His pride was bleeding worse than his skin. Run the simulation again, he said. His assistant, Lynn, tapped at her console. The numbers appeared on the screen. The simulation was clear. The Xanth had better ships, better weapons, better positioning. They should have won in less than an hour. The simulation says we win, Lynn said. 87% chance. Then why did we lose the first fight? Lynn did not have an answer. The simulation could not explain the human ship that kept charging while on fire. It could not explain a pilot who smiled while dying. It could not explain a species that chose to ram instead of retreat. The humans did not fit the math. Vex stood up. He walked to the main screen. The human colony was small. A few domes on a dusty moon. The human defense force was even smaller. 4 ships remained. They floated near the colony, doing nothing. Waiting. New plan, Vex said. We surround them. Cut off their escape. They cannot ram us if they have nowhere to go. They cannot surprise us if we see them coming. The Xanth ships moved into position. They spread out in a perfect circle around the human ships. Every ship knew its place. Every commander knew the plan. It was beautiful. It was clean. It was exactly what the Academy taught. The humans did something else. One by one, the human ships went dark. Their engines stopped. Their lights went out. Their heat signals faded. Their communication channels went silent. They did not run. They did not fight. They just disappeared. Vex stared at the screen. What are they doing? Lynn tapped her console. They have turned off all systems, sir. No power. No heat. No signals. They are just drifting. Drifting where? Nowhere, sir. They are not moving. They are just sitting there. Cold. Dark. Silent. Vex felt a cold feeling in his stomach. The simulation had not predicted this. No simulation had ever predicted this. Why would a ship turn off its own power in the middle of a battle? It made no sense. It was suicide. A ship with no power could not fight, could not run, could not even send a distress signal. It was just a metal box floating in space. Scan for them, Vex said. Find them. The Xanth ships scanned. Their sensors swept across the area. But the human ships were cold. Cold ships are hard to find in space. Space is already cold. A ship with no heat looks like a rock. Looks like debris. Looks like nothing. We cannot find them, sir, Lin said. They are too dark. Too quiet. They could be anywhere. Vex slammed his fist on the arm of his chair. This is not war. This is hiding. Cowards hide. Soldiers fight. Sir, Lin said carefully, they are not hiding. They are waiting. Waiting for what? Lin looked at the screen. The dark empty space where the human ships had been. I do not know, sir. That is what scares me. Hours passed. The Xanth fleet sat in its perfect formation. The humans did not appear. The Xanth scanned again and again. Nothing. The human ships had vanished. It was like they had never existed. Vex grew impatient. They are gone. They ran. They turned off their ships and drifted away. Cowards. Send a message to the colony. Tell them to surrender. The Xanth sent the message. The colony did not answer. The humans on the ground were quiet too. No threats. No pleas. Just silence. This is wrong, Lin said. They are not afraid. They are not hiding. They are doing something. We just do not know what. Vex ignored her. He was the general. He had never lost a battle. He was not going to lose to a species that turned off its own engines. Move the fleet closer to the colony, he ordered. We will take the moon by force. The human ships are gone. There is nothing to stop us. The Xanth fleet moved forward. 15 perfect warships closing in on a small, undefended colony. It should have been easy. It should have been over. Then the human ships came back. They appeared from nowhere. One moment, space was empty. The next moment, 4 cold, dark, silent ships were right behind the Xanth fleet. They had not run. They had drifted. Slowly. Quietly. Using no power. Making no noise. The Xanth had sailed right past them without knowing. The humans turned their power back on. Their engines roared. Their weapons charged. Their lights blazed. They were not hiding anymore. They were hunting. Sir! Lin shouted. They are behind us. Vex spun around. The screen showed 4 human ships. Close. Very close. Too close to miss. Too close to escape. The humans fired. Their weapons were weak, but at this range, weak was enough. They hit the Xanth ships from behind, where the shields were thinnest. One Xanth cruiser exploded. Another lost its engines. A third went dark. Turn the fleet around. Vex shouted. The Xanth ships tried to turn. But they were in a perfect formation. A formation designed for fighting enemies in front of you. Not behind you. The humans had exploited a weakness the Xanth did not even know they had. Within 20 minutes, the Xanth lost 3 more ships. The humans lost none. They had not won by being stronger. They had won by being smarter. By being patient. By being willing to sit in the dark, cold and silent, for hours, just waiting for the right moment. The Xanth retreated again. Vex sat in his chair. His hands were shaking. His perfect simulation had predicted a human surrender in 6 hours. Instead, the humans had done something the simulation never considered. They had turned off their engines and drifted. They had played a different game. And the Xanth had lost. Lin looked at him. Sir, we are not fighting a species that follows rules. We are fighting a species that makes its own. The humans do not care about our theories. They care about winning. And they will do anything to win. Anything. Vex said nothing. He just stared at the screen. The human ships were dark again. Drifting again. Waiting again. Somewhere out there, in the cold silence of space, they were watching. And they were patient. And that, more than any weapon, was what scared him most. 3 days. That was how long the humans had drifted. 3 days without power. 3 days without heat. 3 days without light. 3 days sitting in the cold dark, breathing slow, waiting. The Xanth had searched for them. They had scanned every rock, every piece of debris, every shadow. They had found nothing. Because the humans had become nothing. Cold metal. Dead machines. Ghosts. Then the humans woke up. Their engines fired. Their weapons charged. Their lights blazed. They appeared from behind a large asteroid, right in the middle of the Xanth fleet. Not in front. Not to the side. In the middle. Where no enemy was supposed to be. General Vex jerked in his chair. His coffee spilled. His heart stopped for half a second. Where did they come from? He shouted. Lin stared at her screen. Her face was white. They were hiding behind that asteroid, sir. No power. No heat. Our sensors thought it was just a rock. For 3 days. Yes, sir. Vex could not speak. 3 days. 3 days of sitting in the dark, cold and silent, just waiting for the perfect moment. No species did that. No book taught that. No simulation predicted it. It was not war. It was something else. Something patient. Something hungry. Something human. The human ships attacked. They did not use formations. They did not follow rules. They just moved. Fast. Chaotic. Unpredictable. One ship charged straight at the Xanth flagship. Another circled around to the rear. A third faked a retreat, then turned and came back. A fourth just sat there, doing nothing, waiting to see what happened. Shoot them. Vex ordered. The Xanth fired. Their weapons were accurate. Their aim was perfect. But the humans did not stay still. They moved like water. They dodged left when the Xanth aimed right. They ducked down when the Xanth aimed up. They were not following any known pattern because they had no pattern. They were just reacting. Second by second. Move by move. The human ship that had faked a retreat came back. It fired at a Xanth cruiser. The cruiser's shields held. The human ship turned and ran again. The Xanth cruiser chased. That was a mistake. The other 3 human ships attacked the cruiser from 3 sides at once. The cruiser had no chance. It exploded. The human ship that had run turned around and came back. It had not been running. It had been bait. The humans had used their own ship as bait. No book taught that. Vex slammed his fist on the arm of his chair. This is not war. This is cheating. Lynn looked at him. Her voice was quiet. Sir, there are no rules in war. There are only survivors. The humans understand that better than we do. The human ships kept fighting. They used every trick. They turned off their lights and disappeared into the DAC, then turned them back on somewhere else. They sent false signals on Xanth channels, pretending to be Xanth ships. They lied about their positions. They lied about their damage. They lied about everything. One human ship sent a distress signal. We are hit. We are surrendering. Do not shoot. The Xanth held their fire. The human ship drifted closer. Then, when it was close enough, it fired. It had not been hit. It had not been surrendering. It had been lying. The Xanth cruiser did not have time to react. It was destroyed. Vex stared at the screen. His mouth was open. His hands were shaking. They lied. They pretended to surrender. That is. Smart, Lynn said. Dishonest. But smart. Vex turned to her. His eyes were wild. You are defending them. I am trying to understand them, sir. They do not care about honor. They do not care about rules. They do not care about what is fair. They care about winning. And they will do anything to win. Anything. We need to accept that, or we will lose. The battle continued for 2 more hours. The Xanth lost 7 more ships. The humans lost 1. The numbers made no sense. The theories made no sense. The books made no sense. Nothing made sense. When it was over, the human ships did not chase. They did not gloat. They just went back to the colony. Back to their families. Back to their lives. The battle was over. They had won. They did not need to celebrate. They just needed to survive. Vex sat in the DAC. His fleet was broken. His pride was broken. His theories were broken. He had studied war for 50 years. He had written books. He had taught classes. He had never seen anything like this. The humans did not fight like soldiers. They fought like cornered animals. They used every trick, every lie, every dirty move. Nothing was too low. Nothing was too cheap. Nothing was off the table. Lynn sat beside him. Sir, I have been reading more about human history. They have been fighting each other for thousands of years. They have tried every strategy, every trick, every betrayal. There is nothing new under their sun. They have seen it all, done it all, survived it all. Vex looked at her. So what do we do? Lynn was quiet for a moment. Then she said, we stop trying to fight them like a Xanth enemy. They are not Xanth. They do not think like us. They do not fight like us. They do not value the same things we value. If we want to beat them, we need to become more like them. We need to learn to lie, to cheat, to use bait, to drift in the DAC for 3 days, to do things no book would ever teach. Vex shook his head. That is not who we are. Then we will lose, Lynn said. Because the humans do not care who we are. They only care about who is left standing. And right now, that is them. The Xanth fleet limped home. The war was not over. But something had changed. The perfect generals had met an enemy that did not read their books. An enemy that made its own rules. An enemy that cheated. and lied, and drifted in the dark, and won. Vex wrote a new book. He called it The Unwritten Rules, How Humans Redefined War. It was short. It had only one page. On that page, he wrote, "There are no rules. There is only winning. Learn that, or lose to those who already know it." He sent a copy to every Xanth Academy. Most generals threw it away. But some read it, and some understood. The galaxy was changing, and the humans were the ones holding the pen. The war lasted 3 more weeks. The Xanth lost every battle, not because they were weak, because they were predictable. The humans knew what the Xanth would do before the Xanth knew themselves. The Xanth ran simulations. The humans ran nothing. They just reacted. They just adapted. They just won. In the final battle, a human ship was hit. Not destroyed, but damaged. It could not run. The Xanth boarded it. They captured one soldier. One tired, dirty, angry human soldier. His name was Rico. He was not a general. He was not a hero. He was just a man who had been fighting for too long. The Xanth brought him to General Vex. Vex sat in his command room. His uniform was clean. His desk was organized. His books were stacked in perfect order. Everything was as it should be. Except the war. The war was a disaster. Rico stood in front of Vex. His hands were cuffed. His face was bruised. His clothes were torn. He looked like he had not slept in a week. Because he had not. Humans did not sleep much during war. There was no time. Vex looked at the human. He had expected something different. A monster. A demon. A creature of chaos. Instead, he saw a tired man with dark circles under his eyes and a small cut on his cheek. He looked ordinary. He looked broken. He looked like someone who had seen too much. "Where did you learn these tactics?" Vex asked. His voice was calm. Curious. Genuine. Rico laughed. It was a short laugh. A dry laugh. A laugh with no joy in it. "Tactics? You think we have tactics?" "You won," Vex said. Again and again. "You must have tactics. You must have training. You must have studied something." Rico shook his head. "We made it up as we went. Every battle. Every move. Every trick. We did not plan. We just survived. That is not tactics. That is desperation." Vex frowned. "That is not possible. War is a science. It follows rules. It has patterns. You cannot just make things up and expect to win." Rico looked at Vex. Really looked at him. He saw the clean uniform. The organized desk. The stacked books. He saw a man who had studied war in a classroom. A man who had never been hungry. Never been cold. Never been so scared that he could not breathe. "You studied war in a classroom," Rico said. "We learned it in a gutter. There is a difference." Vex did not understand. What difference? Rico pulled at his cuffs. They did not move. He stopped trying. "You read about battles in books. We bled in them. You ran simulations. We buried our friends. You learned theory. We learned that theory does not matter when someone is trying to kill you. You have rules. We have nothing. Nothing except the will to survive." Vex sat back. He had never heard anyone describe war this way. To him, war was numbers. Formations. Strategies. To this human, war was blood. Fear. Loss. They were not speaking the same language. "Your people lied," Vex said. "You pretended to surrender. You sent false signals. You used your own ships as bait. Those are not honorable tactics." Rico laughed again. This time it was bitter. "Honor. You want to talk about honor. You came to our world. You wanted our resources. You were going to take our homes. And you want us to fight with honor. Honor is for people who have something to lose. We had nothing. Nothing except each other and a stupid hope that we might survive. So yes, we lied. We cheated. We did whatever it took. Because the alternative was losing everything. And we have lost enough." Vex was quiet for a long time. He looked at his books. The books he had written. The books he had studied. The books that had taught him everything about war. They had not taught him this. They had not taught him about desperation. About hunger. About the cold dark of space where you drift for 3 days with no power, just waiting. They had not taught him about lying to save your friends. About cheating to protect your family. About doing whatever it takes because the alternative is unthinkable. "You do not follow rules," Vex said slowly. "Because you never had any." Rico nodded. "We made our own. In the gutter. In the blood. In the fear. Every human carries their own set of rules. They are not written down. They are not taught in schools. They are carved into us by pain, by loss, by the simple knowledge that no one is coming to save us. So we save ourselves, by any means necessary. Vex stood up. He walked to the window. Outside, the stars were cold and bright. Somewhere out there, the human colony was still standing. The humans had won. Not because they were stronger, because they were willing to do things the Xanth were not. You are better at this than us, Vex said. It was not a question. Rico shrugged. We have more practice. You studied war for 50,000 years. We have been fighting for millions. Every day, every night, against each other, against our planet, against ourselves. War is not a science to us. It is a way of life. A terrible, ugly, necessary way of life. You think we are monsters. We are not. We are survivors. There is a difference. Vex turned back to look at the human. The tired, dirty, broken human who had somehow beaten the greatest military minds in the galaxy. He did not look like a monster. He looked like a man who had seen too much and lost too much and kept going anyway. That, Vex realized, was more terrifying than any weapon. Release him, Vex said to his guards. Sir? Lin asked. He is not our enemy. He is our teacher. And we have a lot to learn. Rico rubbed his wrists where the cuffs had been. He looked at Vex. You are letting me go. You are no threat to us, Vex said. You have already won. Keeping you here changes nothing. Go home. Go back to your people. Tell them the war is over. We will not come back. Rico nodded. He walked to the door. Then he stopped. He turned around. One more thing. Yes. The gutter is not a nice place. But it teaches you things. Things no classroom can teach. If you want to understand us, do not read our books. Read our history. Our real history. The one full of blood and pain and loss. That is where you will find us. That is where you will understand. He left. The door closed behind him. Vex sat down at his desk. He picked up one of his books. He looked at the cover. The Science of War, 50,000 Years of Theory. He put it down. He would not read it again. He had new lessons to learn. Lessons from the gutter. Lessons from the humans. Lessons that could not be written in books. Only lived. Only survived. Only understood by those who had been to the edge and come back. And the humans, he realized, lived at that edge every single day. That was why they won. That was why they would always win. And that was the lesson he would never forget. The war ended on a Tuesday. No grand surrender. No dramatic speech. Just a quiet message from General Vex to the human colony. We are leaving. We will not return. The war is over. The humans did not celebrate. They did not cheer. They just went back to fixing their ships and planting their gardens and living their lives. They had won. But winning did not feel like victory. It just felt like surviving. Again, the Xanth fleet limped home. 15 ships had gone to war. 6 returned. 9 were destroyed. Not by a larger force. Not by better weapons. By a species that had no academy, no theories, no books. By a species that made up the rules as they went. By a species that was not afraid to lie, cheat, and drift in the dark for 3 days. General Vex walked into the Xanth Academy of War. The white stone walls were the same. The blue glass windows were the same. The statues of ancient generals were the same. But everything felt different. The air was heavier. The silence was louder. The students looked at him with wide eyes. They had heard the news. The perfect general had lost. Lost to animals. Lost to chaos. Lost to humans. Vex went to the library. He pulled his own books from the shelves. The Science of War. Perfect Formations. 50,000 Years of Theory. He stacked them on a table. Then he pulled every book written by every Xanth general for the last 50,000 years. The stack grew tall. It grew heavy. It grew into a mountain of paper and pride and perfect theories that had just been proven useless. Lin stood behind him. Sir, what are you doing? Vex did not answer. He picked up the first book. He opened it. He read the first page. War is a science. It follows rules. It has patterns. It can be predicted. He closed the book. He threw it into a metal bin. Then another. Then another. Book after book. Theory after theory. 50,000 years of knowledge, tossed into a bin like garbage. Sir, Lin said again. Those are our history. No, Vex said. Those are our mistakes. We thought war was a science. It is not. It is an art. An ugly, messy, unpredictable art. And we have been teaching the wrong thing for 50,000 years. He finished throwing the books. The bin was full. He did not light it on fire. That would be too dramatic. Too symbolic. He just left it there. A pile of old ideas that no longer worked. Then he sat down at an empty desk. He pulled out a blank notebook. He wrote a title on the first page. Human Application, When Theory Meets Reality. Lynn sat across from him. What are you writing? The truth, Vex said. Everything we got wrong. Everything the humans got right. Everything we need to learn if we want to survive. He wrote for 3 days. He did not sleep. He did not eat. He just wrote. He wrote about the human ship that kept charging while on fire. He wrote about the humans who drifted for 3 days with no power, cold and silent, waiting. He wrote about the human who pretended to surrender, then fired. He wrote about the human soldier in the dirty uniform who laughed when asked about tactics. He wrote about the gutter, about desperation, about the will to survive when you have nothing left, about the ugly, brutal, beautiful reality of human war. When he was done, he called the academy together. Every student, every teacher, every general. They filled the great hall. They stood in silence. They waited. Vex stood at the front. He looked old, tired, broken, but his eyes were clear. For 50,000 years, he said, we taught that war is a science, that it follows rules, that it can be predicted. We were wrong. The hall was silent. The humans taught us something new. They taught us that war is not about rules. It is about survival. They taught us that theory is beautiful, but reality is ugly. And humans are the best at ugly. He held up his new book, Human Application, When Theory Meets Reality. This is our new textbook. It has only 1 chapter. But that chapter will save our species. Because it teaches us not how to fight like Xanth. It teaches us how to fight like humans. Not with honor. With desperation. Not with rules. With whatever works. Not with theory. With reality. The students did not clap. They did not cheer. They just stared. Some were afraid. Some were confused. Some were angry. But all of them were listening. Vex put the book down. The war is over. We lost. But we lost to a species that has been fighting for millions of years. A species that learned war in the gutter, not in a classroom. A species that does not know how to quit. That is not weakness. That is not shame. That is a lesson. And we will learn it, or we will die. He stepped down. The hall emptied. The students went back to their rooms. The teachers went back to their offices. The generals went back to their ships. Everything was different. Nothing would be the same. Months later, a human ship arrived at the Xanth home world. Not a warship. A trade ship. The humans came with goods and smiles and questions. They did not gloat. They did not mock. They just wanted to trade. To talk. To move on. Vex met the human captain. A woman named Sarah. She was small. She was young. She smiled too much. You wrote a book about us, Sarah said. Yes, Vex said. Can I read it? It would not make sense to you. It is for Xanth. To help us understand you. Sarah nodded. Do you understand us now? Vex thought about it. No. But I understand that I do not understand. That is more than I knew before. Sarah laughed. That is the most human thing a Xanth has ever said. She left. The trade went well. The humans went home. The Xanth went back to their books. But the books were different now. They taught new lessons. Lessons about the gutter. About desperation. About the ugly, beautiful, terrible will to survive. The galaxy had learned something new. Theory is beautiful. Reality is ugly. And humans are the best at ugly. Not because they want to be. Because they had to be. Because their planet was hard. Their history was bloody. Their lives were short. They learned to fight in the dark, with nothing but hope and duct tape and a stubborn refusal to die. The Xanth respected that now. They did not love the humans. They did not fear them. They just understood them a little better. And understanding, Vex had learned, was the first step to surviving. And surviving, the humans had taught him, was the only victory that mattered.